Are you a targeted parent and your children have in fact rejected you, which I understand is really painful? Now, depending on which stage you're at during that process of being targeted, this video could be something that could be useful to you. As we know, this is a form of covert abuse and continued abuse, most usually by a narcissist. But the question is, for those targeted parents who are left feeling really powerless, is there anything that you can do? And of course, the likelihood is that you would have tried stuff. I understand that, but there may be something, depending, like I said, on the stage of the targeting, how far down the line you are. There may be some things that I'm going to mention now that maybe you haven't considered, so you may want to consider them. And I guess one of the first things you may have thought of, which springs to my mind certainly, is to try to get your child into therapy, either on their own or with you, to try and find out and work out what the root of this, the rejection is, and try to turn that around. Now, depending on the age of the child, the younger the better probably, but if they're an older child, it's unlikely that they're going to want to try to turn that around, because they've been trained to reject you by the alienating parent, and they're really not going to be interested in doing that. I think it's certainly worth remembering that unfortunately these children are in a lot of pain and probably feeling quite guilty about trying to feel okay about you as a parent. I think another thing to consider when you're facing this problem is to look at where you fit in the dynamic, because there isn't a one-stop shop. There isn't any sort of like regular solution that anybody could come up with. It depends very much on your experiences, how your child is, and ultimately how your ex-partner is and how you are. It's a whole dynamic, so that needs looking at first and foremost. And I don't think you necessarily need a trained therapist to look at that. You could probably explore that in depth yourself, I believe. And I think during this process, it's really worth remembering that it isn't gender specific, and this issue affects everybody. Everybody. Another really useful point, depending on your situation and how far down the line you are, is to really reflect on you and your parenting, and as difficult as it may be, to try to really take ownership of your own things. So that means looking deeply into your behaviour, your relationship with the child, because not all alienating parents, not all alienation is caused by brainwashing from the other parent. Sometimes there is a legitimate or a real feeling within the child, not one that's been manipulated, but a real feeling of a need to reject you. So that needs to be looked at first, and I'm sure anybody that's even remotely conscious or conscientious would have done that. But I think it's really important to reflect on your own stuff, your own issues, your own experiences, and your place within that family dynamic, because that's very powerful. And this isn't at all by any means about judgment. It's just getting a more holistic picture and really looking at what is going on here. And sometimes that's really, really hard to do. To sort of look from the outside in is really hard to do, especially when you're looking at your own life and the way that you interact and the quality of those interactions and, you know, your previous experiences. It can be really hard to do, but actually that also is part of the first step of healing. It's really not about blaming anybody. It's not about being a victim status or anything like that. I mean, the likelihood is that it is coming from the other side, but all I'm saying is that, you know, as good individuals, we need to look at our own stuff too. And I believe there are occasions when the targeted parent can be rejected because they weren't strong enough to stand up to their children whilst their children are being brainwashed and being hostile towards them. They weren't strong enough to remain that sort of grounded adult, which obviously, if you're dealing with a narcissist parent on the other end, would give them the perfect opportunity to overthrow you. So I think that's worth looking at too, like your boundaries and stuff like that. And if on reflection you feel that maybe the whole situation has weakened you, that's actually something you can change. You have the power to change that. So there's going to be a lot of stuff within this that you are completely powerless over. And the idea of this video is to get you to look at the things that you can change, because there are actually quite a few when you flip it on its head, depending again, and I say this strongly, at what stage you're at. And if your ex-partner that is attempting to target you through your children, if they are showing bullying type behaviours, then those children will model that quite easily. And if you're not strong enough to fight it, then in a way you've got two sets of bullying, which is why I'm saying you've got to be coming from a place of strength. And sometimes, because it can be so intense, it's just easy sometimes to just maybe be in denial, switch off, because it's such a tough thing to deal with, and sometimes we just zone out as parents, and that isn't going to be helpful either. In fact, it kind of perpetuates the already existing targeting, and really, if you're dealing with a narcissist, it kind of helps them along their way. You know, you could have left your relationship with the narcissist, or equally you could still be living with them, because as we know, the targeting can start actually within the home, so it's already embedding and growing there. It doesn't necessarily have to be that you have left this person. Obviously the ex-partner may become more poisonous if you're not together, and that gives them more strength and more drive to attack you. I think whatever is going on, whatever the landscape is, I think it's really valuable for you to analyse everything and look at what is your role in the family, and that could be a contained family unit, or it could be a split family unit. Either way, it could be that you are co-parenting with a narcissist, or other, parallel parenting, or it could be that you're all living together in the same household. But the first thing is identify where you fit. Hopefully it's not too late for you to sit down and really analyse yourself, your children or child, and also the partner or ex-partner. Do a sort of analysis of everything and look at, maybe get the wheel of a cycle of abuse, and maybe see if you can see any patterns there that are happening. Are these behaviours coming from the other person and they're being modelled? Then obviously that gives your children a good enough excuse to disrespect you and challenge you and target you in the same way, because that's what they see. Try to strip down all the parts of the process and look and see what is actually happening here. What's happening with me? How am I reacting? How is this happening? How is my ex-partner reacting? How am I reacting to them? If your ex-partner disrespects you in front of the children, how are you reacting to that? Are you coming from a place of strength? Really importantly, look at your patterns of behaviour and your responses, because at the end of the day, you are completely powerless, more or less, over what other people do, even your children. But you can change yourself, and you can change how you respond to stuff. It just means you need to sit back and look at it with more clarity and depth. And I guess at the end of all of this, what you would like and hope for is that you have a better reconnection with your children. However, being as you can only change yourself, that's the only bit that you can control. You can make those changes. So that's going to change the dynamics if you change how you respond, but it's not going to change the relationship, because a relationship takes two. So that's going to take a bit more work. But someone has to change the dynamics somewhere, because that's really important. And the only thing you can really hope to achieve is that you feel more comfortable within yourself, and that you're more healthy, your mental health is better, you have better well-being, you're more focused and more happy in your life, because that is an obtainable goal. Having a goal of repairing a relationship could lead you into a false sense of security. That may or may not happen, but the The only things that you can control today are making those changes within yourself and understanding, like I said, the dynamics within you. And this isn't a judgment or a criticism. I understand totally how difficult it can be. I'm just trying to be solution focused when you are a powerless targeted parent. And this video is really about parents, but don't forget, it's really important to try to ask your children, how do you feel, strike up that conversation with them if you get the opportunity, and try to get some sort of clarity on how it makes them feel and what it is that they need from you. That's going to be a difficult thing to manage, but that's a story for another day. Well, I hope that you found some value in this video. Please like and subscribe if you're interested so you don't miss out, and I'll see you in my next video. Take it easy, you have got this 100%.